Morning everyone. It is a perfect day. It's overcast, so it's not too hot and there's a bit of a breeze. So hopefully I can make quite a lot of progress today. It's a Sunday morning. I did pop down last night and put another coat of red oxide or Bonder primer on there. So that's all looking really nice, so I'm pleased with that. Gonna go turn the power on, get my lights erected somewhere sensible. I might move the car forward slightly and then I can get into that area and repair that rear lower corner. Right, a bit of light and a bit of tidying up later. That's everything that was done yesterday and Monday night. Really good. I've moved the car forward slightly and I've reminded myself that I still need to finish welding down here. Need to make a little bit to fill in that corner because it was rotten, so I chopped it out and finished the last part of the boot lip. While I'm down here, I'm also going to weld up the hole in the middle rear because this is a series 2 rear lamp panel. The series 1 and 1.5, it doesn't have a hole there because the badge bar doesn't go the right full width of the car, so that needs doing. That bottom corner is all, I think, okay. Crustiness starts about here, so hopefully I'm just going to, the bottom flange looks pretty good as well, so I'm going to have to do some excavations to see quite how bad the rot is, but I'll do that later. First off, weld that bit, make a bit to go in there and weld up that hole. That's my bit to go in there. Just need to rust treat it, hammer the flanges and then sand that lower edge. Then it should be good to go. I've got that clamped in there. I've left it long. That's actually sitting below the level of where I need it. Then when it's plug welded in, welded at the top, I'll cut through the grinder, tap it forward and then weld it as a nice seam along the bottom. So that's all finished. It's a bit indented there, but that's because I hammered this quite a long way forward to make sure that it picked up on that bumper support mount on the inside. So that I don't mind, it looks a bit messy, that's all solid. I've put an additional row of stitch welds in here. That end, same the other end. Again, this wouldn't have been done in factory, but it just helps stiffen all this and it prevents these edges opening up, which they can do, and then what happens is the seam sealer splits and water gets in and then they rot out there. So by having that additional stitch, it should hold it all together nicely. And then I just welded up that hole. I didn't put the copper on the back or anything on the back because you can't get to it very easily, so I just migged it up. I think there's a pinhole in it which needs to be zapped, but with a tiny skim of filler that's fine. Now I can turn my attention to that area. I'm never entirely sure whether I like these bits or not. It's satisfying chopping out rust, but it's soul destroying when you find a lot more rust than you were expecting. That whole area I'm pretty happy with, but that does look nasty. So I'm going to take the sander or the flat wheel and just go through there and see what I'm left with. Kind of as I thought, really. I'm not going crazy sanding it because I'll just ruin my sanding disc, because this will have to be cut out anyway, but it looks like we've got rust good rust. I mean good, I mean like substantial rust. So I'm going to get the saw and just cut out a big chunk. Well, that is much better than I thought. We've got the original boot floor there, the rear end of the rear wheel well here, which although it's a bit frilly, is still there in shape, which is very helpful for me. The inner sill, inner wing thing, that's there. It was very crusty, but I'm just going to do what I did on the other side of the car, which is when I finish making the outer, just stitch weld that on. There's no point wasting time building that down into a return, which, you know, the only point of the return is to join these two together and then join them to that. So it could have been worse. I'm going to probably chop. Well, what I really need to do actually is get the car up in the air, get this wheel off, because all of this needs to go together from you know, consideration of the shape of the inner wheel well. In fact, I might do that bit first and then I can put this on the outside. Yeah, I'll do that. Can't remember where I got to on the videos. It turns out eating massive amounts of curry, beer, and then climbing around on a garage floor the next morning is not good for your insides. I think I'd chopped that bit out, but I hadn't taken the wheel off. Where's my light? This, again, is why this car was such a great restoration, well, not even restoration, but renovation prospect, because it's basically really good in here. A lot of cars, that seam there might have gone and opened up. This one, it hasn't. It's got a really good top mount point. The towing eye area, that's all solid. The only reason the underseal's broken off is because I did quite a lot of welding from the other side. I need to cut back and sand back to good metal there, and then I can oh, it's all echoey, how interesting. That can all be patched with one easy patch. Then I'll build that bit to fit, and then I'll be chopping away and excavating that area, which hopefully isn't going to be a huge drama. It's not the best, but it's not a complete mess either, so fingers crossed for that bit. We'll get to there later on today, hopefully. How good is that? Nice solid metal all the way around to here. So now I just need to go and do some cardboard templates and weld it all back together. I'm changing the way in which I'm going to do the repairs. Originally I was going to build the inner part and then put this outer bit on as a closing panel, but I'm not going to do that now because I don't actually know where the end of this fits until that's on there, and then I'll, you know, it'd be easier to put the outer on first and then build the inner up to meet it. Don't worry, I'm not chopping up that beautiful panel. I only bought this, what, about 10 days ago probably. I bought it for the twin plenum, and I'm not going to chop that up to repair Dotty because that in itself is, well, it cost me a lot of money. It's a genuine original British Leyland cathodically treated one, and it does have a few dents and scratches, but that's a really nice panel to have. So dimensionally it's perfect. So I'm going to make my cardboard templates off here, and I know on the car I trimmed to that line and then down here somewhere, so I'm just going to make a cardboard template of that bit, that whole shape, and then trim it, weld it onto the car, and then I can build my inner wheel arch, inner wheel well up to meet it afterwards. So I have my array of, you can see what my diet mainly consists of, co-op chalk ices, and then my fiance, who eats rather more healthily than I do, likes orangey things. Anyway, enough of my diet. We have a cardboard blank of that bit. That hole there would have been for the sunroof drain, but Dotty doesn't have a sunroof, so I will not be replicating that. And I haven't made the return because I didn't have enough cardboard, so when I make this part I'm just gonna make a tab on the end of the steel, and then I'll cut into it, fold it whilst it's actually, or when it's on the car itself. So I'm going to go and make that out of steel now. Here is my rough blank cut out. It is very rough, but you get the idea. I'm not going to bother trimming any of this out in detail until I get that bend in correct, because that will be what sets how much I trim off the top. It's all a little bit big all the way around, and as I say, on my car I'm probably going to end up cutting it like that anyway. But one thing that I have noticed, which is quite annoying, is there's a curve along this bend. So I'm going to try and very carefully put that in the folder, clamp at the ends, but let it stretch in the middle as I fold it, which will be quite an interesting challenge. Here we go. I'm not going to film it because I'm not going to be able to put the camera in the right place, but what I've learnt in the past is that with this folder, if you clamp the ends tight but you put something in the middle that's quite chubby, it stretches and it kind of twists it. So I'm going to try and put a washer in the middle like that. Yeah, basically I'm going to play around for a while until I can work out how I can get this to fold it but slip at the same time, allow the metal to slip so that it kind of bends it not straight. I hope that's clear. What I'm going to try first is using penny washers at the two ends. So got one in there and one there, and when I do these up it'll be clamped at the ends and not the middle, and hopefully we'll get a funny bend. I'm making this up as I go along, so hence why I wasn't going to bother filming it. What's that going to do? That's going to work the other way, isn't it? What I'm going to do now is slide the whole thing back in and put two bigger penny washers but slightly further out this way, so that it'll try bend about that point, and these will be tucked in there like so. I really am making this up, but basically I've got one at the end and one there where I've started the fold, then I've got these three sitting slightly further forward, and then I'm going to use mouth cam again. Hold on. Okay, so it's not clamped tight at the end relative to the middle, along that line anyway. Hopefully as that bends up. And then the last bit I'll do by hand on the car, I think. Let's just see what that's done. Have I bent that the wrong way? No, that is the right way. Doubting myself. They're a bit more than penny washers. Well, it's done something. Ignore my pen line. I have got a bit of a belly in it, which is good. The rest of it, as I say, I'll do by hand and maybe with a hammer, and I might be able to get a bit more of a gentle curve in it. I also need to set a curve going that way, but again I'll probably do that on the car. While I've got the folder, I'm going to check that step distance and then put that one in. I'm actually quite pleased with that. It does have a bit of a belly in it. It's probably not quite as pronounced as the car, but it's not far off. So I'm going to keep, I've just been tapping it on the back with a hammer. I'm just going to keep doing that and see what it does really. And obviously I want all this done before I fold that in, otherwise that will be trying to bend it the other way. Who needs a leather bag when you've got earth? That's good, I like that. I just need to accurately measure that step and then fold it in. Well, that is it recording? It is recording. That's a really good bit of work. I'm happy with that. I've got the curve in it that way, like so. It's subtle, but it's there. I've got more than enough meat on my lower edge so I can fold the lip over, which is something I forgot to do on the other side, but the bottom of the outer wing actually has a slight return in it, so I've got that. Got more than enough meat on there to fold that round, which is good. I might have to make some preliminary bends off the car, because trying to do that afterwards I'll just end up warping the panel. But I've also, with a hammer and then just by finger pressure. Is that a Spitfire? It is a Spitfire. This camera isn't blessed with zoom, but that is a Spitfire that sometimes flies over here. I don't know why. There's like a few aerodromes around here, but yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, so I've bent that top bit in just using finger pressure, and as you can see by the grass stains, just twatting it. I'm gonna do some speed shaping. That's clamped up in there at the right kind of height and angle. I've set it as a butt weld there. That's sitting nicely in there, and I've got my little bit that I can hammer over afterwards. So that's all nice. I've marked out here where I need to cut to neatly, and then I know it dives away. It does something like that, but I can't really see where it is. I thought I'd be able to get to the back side and see it, but I can't. So what I'm going to do is just get the cutting disc and go straight through both up to about here, and hope that then that sits in there and I can weld it up nicely. It's not really a bodge, it's just a speedy way of aligning the two panels. So I'm going to unclip that and then zinc paint everything, weld it, and then after I've done that I can fold that round hopefully to make a nice arch shape, and then build the bit inside. We are almost ready for welding. That's all painted in zinc, as is the back side of that. I've drilled out my plug weld holes a little bit bigger, and I also put a fifth one in. I wasn't really concentrating when I put those in. I just went pop 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 with the compressed air punch, and I could have spaced them a bit better, but when it's all rubbed down you won't see them anyway. I've also hammered a return into that lower edge because that's how it's meant to be, and in the past I've thought, well, I'll wait until it's welded on and then I'll hammer it over on the car, but that typically doesn't work. It just, you end up with a really crappy wavy line, so it's better to set that edge now, and then when it's in it'll all look nice and neat. That's the plan anyway. Right, so that's in there. It needs grinding down, obviously. I wasn't as patient as probably I should have been, so it has sunk in a bit here. But in a way, like, I mean, sunk in from heat distortion. But in a way, that's actually quite helpful, because Excuse me, I just can't help poking stuff sometimes. There we go. Oh yeah. What was I saying before I distracted myself? Oh yeah, it's shrunk in, but it's actually worked in my favour because all it's done is help to exaggerate that little flared curve that should be in the panel. So I wouldn't mind betting that I can grind that smooth, and by the time it's undersealed, it won't even need any filler. And bearing in mind the bumper goes there, and you're stood up here looking down at the car, so plus it's going to be black. So really, it's a really like neat repair in a way. What I've got to do now after lunch is carefully fold that up all the way around. I'll have to just do it with a hammer and a dolly. I might cut some relief slots in here because that will help it bend without straightening that panel. I still want that curve, and also the benefit of having slots cut in it, I'm going to need to drill plug weld holes anyway, so I might as well have slots, and then I kind of, you know, two birds with one stone. So yes, that's quite a good amount of progress for a morning. I've done that bit, I've probably taken me 2 hours. I did have a curry bathroom break, as I was saying earlier. Now it's lunchtime, so I am going to go and eat something. Back from lunch, just cleaned that up with the grinder. Again, I'm not going silly with cleaning it up. There's a bit of a step there, but I don't really care. I don't want to lose any strength. I've neatened that up a bit. Looks pretty good. Now I need to mark. I marked where the bottom needs to finish with a green pen. Now I just need to fold it along that line. So I've got a dolly somewhere on the floor. I don't know what I've done with it, but I'll just hammer and probably use pliers to bend this around and then beat it into submission. Again, claw hammer. It's probably not the tool to be using, but that will work. That will look nice with a bit of filler. And these fingers, they can all be welded together to make a nice solid return. And that needs to be folded too, but I'll probably start the fold and then I'll cut it and weld it in as I go. So we have that now, which is good. Excuse me, so if I sound funny, I'm still wearing my duster masky thing. So we're nearly done in this area. Let me get my light to behave properly. I just need to make something. Come on, you little fucker. Oh well, I'll break it off in a minute. These holes, incidentally, would have been for mud flaps, so I've left those in case somebody wants to fit them. I was going to plug weld through that into... Actually no, that one I made, didn't I? I stamped that. That's a mud flap hole. There would have been a series of them down here. I've got a car outside that I kind of want to show you, because it explains why doing this wrong can cause problems, but I don't want to reveal that car yet. But if you're doing this repair, make sure you leave lots of meat on here and you're not tempted just to leave that as a single skin. It can be a single skin, don't get me wrong, but just leave it fat. I might still leave this as a single skin, because what I could do is beat that down onto there, weld all the way along there, and then just make a closing panel from there, because that is all super solid metal. Doesn't really need to be twin skin. I don't know, I think it might be the easiest, simplest way of doing it, because cleaning up in there to get a good weld onto that bit is going to be a pain in the proverbial. Well, with a new grinding disc on the end of the grinder, I've just managed to get in enough to clean the under seal off. So I'm going to make a patch now that goes up in here, and I'm going to try and beat it into some kind of rain channel, but if that doesn't work, I'm just going to clamp these together and then seam weld it all. Right, been a bit of cardboard engineering and beating later, and I've made myself, you can see it properly, I'll take it into the daylight. So I've made that. It was a bit of a complex shape really, and it looks crude, but once that's cleaned up and welded in there, it should be really nice. And I've ended up with a dimensionally correct, and in terms of the layers of metal, that will all be correct. So I need to drill a couple of plug weld holes in here to go onto that. The rest of it will be stitch welded, and then it's going to be one plug weld through there to that bit. Oh dearie me. Some of that went really well, but some of it went badly because, well, excuse me, breathing in fumes still because it's very hot. Basically, I started too high with my patch. So you can see that step that I put in it and the plug weld hole, well, I completely missed all of that, which is really annoying. But the rest of it, considering what access is like, I'm really happy with that welding. The rest of it, including that corner down there, could be finished with copious amounts of seam sealer. So it's not ideal, but that's the way it's going to be, because I can't be bothered to do it again. And there's no point just filling it with MIG weld, because that will just, you know, waste a MIG wire. So I'm going to get the sander and just clean that bit up. Well, that's kind of cleaned up as best as I can. Just trim that bit off. I'm not sure how much more I'm going to do today because I'm knackered. I don't know why I'm always knackered, but I am. The next area, well, obviously de-rust that properly and paint it all in red oxide, but that doesn't really warrant a video. What does warrant a video is the fun that it will be to, once again, poke stuff that's going to be interesting to see how quite bad the rust is, because seam sealer can hide a whole world of hurt already. That okay, I'm going to put my mask on and move my tools out of the way, and then prepare to be destructive. Oh. be fair, that isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was pretty much expecting all of this to be rot and rust, which it isn't. That's all really hard metal. That's me full arm strength going into it, and yeah, I can go through, but you know, other people probably would have just treated that. I won't, because I know if it's done that, it's probably done it from the inside out. So all of that, yeah, look at that, see, it's all on the backside. The good news is wax oil or cavity wax in there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is really, really good. That's the inner sill as it sweeps around. So again, it might look like I'm welding up a rust heap, and I kind of am, but the actual bones of the car inside is good. So, and I'm not going to do this today because I want to go do other things now, but chop that bit out, have a good poke around inside the sill, remake the rear end of the sill. That bit up there is good, which is nice, because that's one of my key body lines. And then chop that bit out and weld a new bit in there. Anyway, that's playtime over. Let's just have a look one more time. That's all really nice, all solid, nice original looking. Got the double layered rain channel bit in there, which is nice. A lot of people don't bother. Yeah, happy with the progress, just more to go.